So, for the first time in a long time, we are doing this again. So, I had to write down some stuff on a piece of paper because I don't have my laptop with me. As you're about to see, I have essentially packed up everything. And now I gotta set up the camera. We'll get to that. We'll get there. It's been about like 6 months, man. Let's talk. Last time I made a video was me talking about San Francisco. And that was a long, long time ago. And a lot has changed since then. That city, its people, the experiences, it had a profound effect on me for its time. After I came back, I had the desire to explore Toronto. I had the desire to meet people. I had the desire to continue my brand building. And I wanted to continue going down the path of working in like software engineering and meeting people there. So let's talk about that. Basically, as soon as I came back, perspective changed for just like how sick Toronto was in terms of like the streets. They weren't hillsides, they weren't hilly in general. It was very easy to just move around, bike around, explore. And interestingly enough, I became even more appreciative of the fact that even though there's a homeless population and there's dirtiness in certain places, it's nothing compared to San Francisco, like at all. That's one thing that I noticed. The next thing that I ended up doing was almost like the after effects of me going on like the social apps, the dating apps. I ended up continuing to use We3, the app that allows you to meet people in like groups of 3. And interestingly enough, I met 2 people. I met up with 2 people. And I haven't talked to them since. It's interesting because although those people were really interesting people, there just wasn't like the click, you know what I mean? And I've experienced that before. I've experienced the click before, so I would know it's possible. It's not like I'm just meeting these people for no reason. Essentially, like it was really cool. I met some cool people by using that app, but then eventually just phased out after like November. So if I were to give you a timeline, October 10th, I think I came back. About a month after, I ended up just having all of these remnant thoughts and desires, and then I'll get into like what happened after. So after that, what happened was that I wanted to finish my brand building. So if you ever go on my website, haseeb.com, if you ever like go to like the Wayback Machine and see like what my website was like before and after my trip to San Francisco, you'd notice that I believe I added a few extra things. I added, for example, the systems that I'm currently working on. I added some more videos, obviously. I added the flawed life assumptions document, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important documents that I've created in the last 6 months. I also ended up like restructuring certain things. The cool thing now is that the website now serves as a tool for figuring out exactly who I am. If you really want to know about me, you can literally just go on there and you can just see who I am, what I do, what I think, what my perspective on certain things are. And so that's pretty much what happened in the first month or so after the last video. Nothing crazy. What was profound though was this desire that I ended up realizing soon after October. And this desire, and I'm about to tell you what the desire was. But to preface it, basically I was having a little bit of issues with trying to be slow. So I probably mentioned before, like two 2 videos ago, 3 videos ago, about how I would always try to be slow, and I would I would play I would play a counter. Sorry, I would play a metronome, and I would have like this slow music, and it was so peaceful and all of that, and all of it was good, but it was very short term, and I just like had this like epiphany where I was like, all of these things that you see me do, they're like these bursts of motivation, and they don't end up lasting. Based off of the new paradigm shift that I've had, I ended up just noticing that there's clearly something I'm not understanding about this stuff. And the one thing I ended up actually understanding for real was the following. And it was just this epiphany right here. It was, if I really want to understand myself best, I can only do so when I'm doing what I want. And there's no resistance in showing what I want. So what that means is, I'll give you a good analogy for this. So let's assume, for example, you're trying to understand somebody you just met, right? If you understand somebody you just met, obviously in the beginning it's very formal. There's a lot of small talk. It's not really like playful yet. You know what I mean? Unless one of the parties decides to make it playful. It's very just like barriers up here, you know? And eventually it ends up, barriers go down, people are a lot more playful, people are a lot more comfortable. And that's when you really get to see people for like who they are and like what they really value and all of that. If anyone ever decided to hold back on anything that they believed or thought or felt, you wouldn't actually get a good idea of who they are, right? And so I just applied that same principle to myself. I said, there's a lot of things that are going on here. And a lot of times it doesn't even come out because I've had these very solid mechanisms for making sure I filter out all the things I don't want to come out. Whether that is things I say, things I feel. So for example, if I feel something I don't feel like feeling, I'm like, oh, this is weird, this is bad, I would immediately just think of ways of escaping it. If, for example, I'm thinking of something that I feel like is bad, I would do the same thing. And I noticed just this shift in understanding between like what your mind really is, and this is pretty much how I can explain it. There's two categories here. There's the first, which is like your conscious mind, the mind that's like doing the commentary, the person, the I should actually start with the other one actually. So there's this unconscious mind, which is the one that's reacting. It's basically the one that's gets angry whenever something bad has been said about it. It's the one that always feels something as soon as it gets offended. It feels the feelings of love whenever they're in a very spiritual / emotional experience. They feel the feelings of fear. The word to encapsulate these like this description is essentially a reactive self. So the unconscious mind. And then there's the conscious one, which is basically the one that does commentary on that unconscious mind's work or / on the unconscious mind's like actions. So if it reacts, you feel guilty because you reacted a certain way, or you beat yourself up because you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this. The conscious mind is also the one that talks to oneself. It's the self-talk that's going on. So anytime you hear about self-talk and about negative and positive self-talk, that's the conscious mind talking. The monkey mind comes from the conscious mind. The one that's reacting is the unconscious mind. Now, talking about doing what you want, essentially what most people are doing in their lives is that they believe actually that their conscious mind is responsible for all of their actions. When in reality, what I've just discovered from my own personal experience is that although your conscious mind does have a say because your conscious mind is doing the interpretation of all these things, your unconscious mind is far more powerful than you think. And I'll give you 3 examples of this right now off the top of my head. If you're trying to stay away from sugar, eventually you're going to find yourself in a corner having some candy or having chocolate or whatever it is, even though you told yourself you're not going to do it. Same thing with smoking, same thing with doing weed, or same thing with like going on like playing video games. You know what I mean? So these are all things that you can essentially find yourself doing, even though you consciously don't want yourself doing it. Another example is, for example, telling someone a piece of advice, like they understand it, like, yes, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, but they end up not doing it. They find themselves regressing back to what their habits have been guiding them to be doing for the last however many times. And these examples that I'm bringing in is an example. I'll keep it to 2, to be honest, because I think I sort of illustrated the point. These examples that I'm sort of bringing up here is just the clear problems that a lot of us have in our lives. Things that we want to do and then we don't actually end up doing them. As a third example, like something just came to my mind as an example, was like going to the gym or studying. You want to study, you want to go to the gym, but then you can't bring yourself to do it. You're asking yourself, why? And considering this model of a subconscious and conscious mind, the subconscious mind is the one that doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to study, it wants to do something else. It doesn't want to go work out, it wants to do something else. But the conscious mind is the one that's been motivated, it's understood conceptually the good things about going to the gym and the good things about studying and getting a good result and all of that. And that essentially is what I'm trying to say is leads to the self-conflict. Now, what I'm trying to get at here, the reason why I bring this is because I noticed that if I really want to understand what the hell is going on, I have to allow my unconscious mind to just take over. Also known as the body. If you think of the unconscious mind as the body versus the mind, you could think of it like that as well. Whatever my body feels like doing, if I feel like, for example, ordering like 2 pizzas tonight and literally having, where's the drink? Literally having like this much pop, like having like 2 or 3 of these cans. If I feel like doing that, I'm going to do it. Because that's what I genuinely want to do. And the moment that I started doing this, some very interesting things happened. So before I get into it, you might be thinking, if you do what you want, you're just gonna spend your whole fucking life just wasting your time. You're gonna be unhealthy as fuck. You're gonna get fat. You might get a disease. You might even get depressed, etc., etc., etc. And this is like essentially, if you, I'm just gonna let you know right now, if that thought came to your head, then you don't understand what doing what you want means. You really don't, because you're approaching it from a conceptual standpoint. You haven't actually experienced it. Doing what you want essentially means that you do what you want. So if, for example, I decide to have this can of grape crush and I decide to have 2 pizzas and I do this for a week straight, eventually I will experience a certain level of pain, let's say, or I'll see myself getting fat, as I actually did. I actually ended up getting a lot of weight. And then by seeing that, if you are okay with that, then there's no problem. Like, keep going. But if you are not okay with the fact that you're fat, or the fact that you're unhealthy, or the fact that you're getting a disease, that is when you'll attain this level of understanding that, oh, now the thing that I want to do is no longer to do this, but to do something else. And as you can see, this is all just organic, natural development of your actions. You're not forcing yourself to do anything. And this leads to you not resisting whatsoever. The good thing about me talking about this is that, like, unlike the slowness, is that with slowness I had about I think a few weeks of experience before I talked about it with the world. With this particular paradigm that I'm explaining, in this particular mindset, you can say, or this particular understanding, this is something that I've been living for 5 months straight, and I have not. It's not even an experiment anymore. It's a way of life, and it's, by my standards, the only way in which you can live life right now, according to obviously my experiences, right? And that might sound really really funny, but just I'm just gonna let you know, there's been times where me doing what I want, I've spent 8 hours a day just working on my trading bot, and I did it because I was just so excited to work on it. It was just complete play the entire day. I felt like I was solving this problem, and I could see the impact of my actions immediately, and if I got a lot of meaning from it. So doing what you want doesn't necessarily mean to escape. That's essentially the biggest misconception that a lot of people that look at this from the outside experience. So the after effects of this have been actually very dramatic. There's a lot of things that have there's a lot of interesting consequences that have come from this, especially after 5 months. So initially, I used to go on like LinkedIn Premium, because I would have LinkedIn Premium and I would get like 15 credits every month, and I would force myself. I used it as almost like a forcing function to like message 15 people every month, or else I would lose like $60 or $70. And basically, what I did was I said, every month that I've done this, there's just been so much resistance and so much self conflict. And I just stopped doing it. I lost all 45 credits, pretty much lost like $180, $200 worth of credits. And I was like, yeah, I think it's worth it. Like, I don't want to do this. It's not fun, you know? It's not something that I feel like doing. And so I ended up not doing it. And I'm so happy I haven't done it since, because I was approaching it very insincerely, right? I didn't actually want to message these people. I was just messaging them for the sake of messaging them, because my credits would expire. The second thing, for example, that I just completely gave up on, and I just said, fuck it, I'm not even doing this anymore, is slowness. I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I genuinely, as we can see, I've spent so many months trying to figure out how to be slow, how to do this, how to do that, how to whatever, and I just can't see why I'm not being slow. And maybe it's because you shouldn't be slow. Maybe it's because my body doesn't feel like being slow. And so I ended up not being slow, and I haven't regretted it since. So that ended up getting extinguished. Another thing that got extinguished was meditation. I always felt like there was like this need to meditate if you wanted to get this, this next level of understanding and enlightenment in your life. And I noticed that wasn't the case. Like, I noticed that every time I would meditate, there would be a lot of resistance leading up to it. There'd be a lot of resistance probably even during it. And it's so funny to me that people actually do this. That people sit through a whole session of meditation and nothing happens the entire time. Maybe nothing happens for a week straight, and they're okay with that. They've almost turned meditation into a game. And I know exactly what the meditation people are thinking immediately, which is that, oh yes, it's like it's a slow cultivation and all of that. 100%. I can see exactly where these people are coming from, but take meditation when you don't want to do it versus meditation when you do want to do it. When you do meditation when you do want to do it, which I doubt a lot of people have ever even gotten to that point, when you do want to do meditation, you are laser focused. Your focus is not even thwarted for a second. And you are 100% in tune with exactly what's happening in your mind. Because if you have a genuine desire to do something, you'll end up doing it. And my meditation happened in the form of something else. And it wasn't through sitting down and trying to watch my thoughts or stop my thoughts or not think or to just experience or whatever different method that people do for meditation. What it essentially was I was just genuinely just trying to understand something about like why I did certain things, and then I was just curious, like extremely curious. I said, why don't I just see what's happening in my head right now? Because the effect of what happens in your head literally affects your actions. So I'd rather see what's in my head and what's operating in there, so that I know what potential actions can come. Obviously, that's probably not going to make sense, but in the context of what I'm talking about, it made sense. So what I did was I just literally pulled out my phone, hit record on the voice memos, put the phone on my chest, and just started just saying every single thought out loud. And crazy enough, all of the thoughts that I wanted to censor, all the thoughts in my whole, like in the last like few months, you can even say, all the thoughts that I didn't want to think about, they just came rushing to the surface, because it knew, my mind knew that it was being listened to. And that's the reason why I recorded it. And it's crazy because I ended up saying those things out loud, and I couldn't believe it. My body was shaking at saying it out loud. And I did that for 40 minutes straight. Like, just think about that. Like, just think about how someone, how the average person can't even sit for 5 minutes doing meditation. And most of the reason I don't blame them, because they don't actually, are genuinely not trying to do it. You know, like they're just trying to do it as an activity and not as an actual investigation of their mind. Versus what I just did. Pretty much I did the same thing. I watched my thoughts, right? But I just was recording. Obviously, there might be some assumptions I'm making. And if I am, feel free to comment that, honestly. That's just how I saw it, though. That people essentially do things that they think they should be doing. And anytime you should be doing something, you don't actually want to be doing it. It's because you've heard it in your conceptual mind. Your conscious mind accepts, but your body doesn't. I stopped meditating. I stopped eating all the food that I wanted, that I was eating in the beginning. Like, I was eating a lot of tuna. I just stopped eating tuna because I'm like, you know what? I don't even feel like eating it anymore. I was eating a specific type of cereal. Stopped eating it because I was like, I don't like it anymore. You know, like I just stopped it completely. Like it was so interesting. And I also noticed that like it was so much easier to just tell people exactly what I was thinking. It's so much easier to tell people when I don't want to chill with them or I don't want to talk to them. I ended up not really conforming to family, cultural norms as much anymore. And I'll give you an example of this. Nothing crazy, just an examples like just imagine like in Afghan culture, when someone walks in the room that's older than you, everyone will get up. So there's this one time I just didn't feel like getting up, and so I didn't do it. And everyone was looking at me like, "Yo, what are you doing?" and I didn't even feel bad about it, because that's what I genuinely wanted to do, right? Like that's also the other thing. Like, how can you ever feel guilty or feel bad about something that you want to do? You know what I mean? Like, how does that compute? And that's why, like, I noticed that like the best way to achieve no resistance is to just do what you want. So let's move on from this. Let me see how much time I've actually spent. Okay, we're actually pretty decently on our way. So shortly after all of this, that's when family ended up coming from Las Vegas. I ended up chilling with them for a while for Christmas. This is like when Omicron was first starting as well, and it was very, everything was like pretty locked down. After my family left, I ended up getting this renewed sense of just wanting to look at stocks, because I don't know if you remember, but Fab at that time was just not, there was no work being done on it. It was like put on the back burner. I just almost felt like demotivated. I actually didn't think it was gonna work, and so I got this renewed sense of trying to work on Fab this time, but with stocks. And so, long story short, what I ended up doing was I spent multiple hours creating a stock screener for Fab, connected to the interactive brokers and Questrade APIs, and those are the only two fucking like proper brokers in Canada, which is like the worst, and just killed me, pissed me off, because like their APIs were so garbage. Both of them, they both had like their pros and cons, and so what happened was that I ended up what's it called? I ended up creating the stock screener, and crazy enough, I was able to create a stock screener that scanned all 7,000 stocks in like the New York Stock Exchange and in the Nasdaq, and I was able to get signals for every single one of them. Now I ran into a problem, and this is why the fucking APIs were shit, which was that I wasn't able to get any stock that didn't have more than 231 candles worth of data. So inactive stocks would be an example of that. Like in the last 90 days, if you don't have 231 candles of a 4 hour, I think, like it wouldn't even detect it. And that was because of the API. But essentially what I'm trying to say though is I was able to know exactly when any stock essentially was following my rules, and I was able to capitalize on it. And crazy enough, I ended up making a lot of money from that. Like I ended up making a lot of money from that, which is interesting. So that got me motivated. Then I tried to like automate the trading, realized that the trading is just so difficult, especially with these brokers that we have and the APIs that we have. Especially in Canada, it was just extremely difficult. And so I just sort of gave up on that. But then like in the middle of me doing the stock thing, I was like, you know what, let me just check out like the crypto side of things. I was like very discouraged at that time because all the stats were showing me that like it wasn't like the trading bot wasn't going to make that much money, or it was going to make a lot of money, but then it was going to lose a lot of money. So anyways, what I ended up doing was I ended up just like looking into crypto, just looking at like different things, different like time frames, just running some random statistics. And then, bro, I had the most insane epiphany ever. And this epiphany changed everything. And it was the following. It was, why am I looking at stocks / cryptos at a specific time frame and trying to adjust my rules to make money on that time frame, when instead what I should be doing is having a certain rule and then looking through the infinite amount of time frames that exist. In this case, it's not really infinite, but like the hundreds of time frames that exist, and then just seeing whichever time frame is the most profitable for that rule. And bro, like that right there, I sort of likened it to like the analogy of marketing, like finding your audience. It's not that you go and create a product and then try to fit an audience to that product, right? You instead, what you do is that you find an audience, and then once you find the audience, then you create the product. I was doing the opposite, and the most tried and true way is by doing what I just said before, finding the audience and then creating the product. You know, this is actually the very reason why my dropshipping endeavor didn't work, because I picked the product and I tried to pick the audience after. And I was doing the same thing with Fab, when it came to timeframes, So the moment I noticed that, everything changed. I ended up literally doing the most micro back testing you've ever seen. I basically got data of the following tree. Like if you would go down the tree, you could see the following. For a specific symbol, I would be able to tell you the historical data of not only that symbol, but its time frame. Not only its time frame, but its rule number. But not only its rule number, like which rule it would conform for my Fab. Not even which rule number, but whether that was long or short. What I'm trying to basically say here is that string of specific constraints that I added, that was one back test. And I would see whether if at that specific symbol, that specific stock ticker or crypto symbol, in that specific time frame, in that specific delay, in that specific rule number, in that specific position side, whether it made money or not. So it was so hyper specific. It was extremely hyper specific. And I literally ran almost 1 million back tests because I did that, all those factors. I literally did like this split testing for like all 150 symbols. And I got like a 750,000, 800,000 rows worth of back testing results, which was insane. Because then all I did was I just filtered it out, filtered out the ones that were losing, then sorted it by risk reward, or sorry, not by risk reward, by longest drawdown, sorted it by average P&L, etc., etc., etc. And there was like a few complications, such as like I forgot to clean my data. I realized that I shouldn't be using mean, I should be using median. I added a correlation coefficient, whatever it is. And at the end, I ended up creating all of this. And it's crazy because as soon as I created it, I was like, bro, this is it. Like all of this data looked amazing. All of it was so beautiful. I brought it down to like 100 rows worth of data that were, and by the way, I'm not telling the story like as clean as it is, because I had to do a lot of like back and forth. I created like a really bad data set, ran the code, and then went back, changed it. But I'll just say a summary of it, just so it makes sense. But had 100 rows worth of data points that were like the 100 best back tests out of those 750,000 pieces of data. And it was crazy because all of these trades were amazing. I was like, if the bot ever executed any of these trades, it would literally make money every time. That's what I was convinced of. And crazy enough, it actually made, sorry, I'm skipping too much. I actually eventually, then after I did that, I went, and with so much motivation, I went and like refactored my entire trader class, completely like revamped it, created a very simple optimization function, which was just like the sorting of the table, and then after that, I created a dashboard. I created a dashboard where you can see exactly what trades I'm in, my historical account balance, what's Bitcoin's current index price, how much profit I made in a week, how much profit I made in a month, how much profit I made in a year, and I'll probably show it like on the screen. And crazy. After I launched this like January, like last week of January, at the end, after I optimized the dashboard, after I optimized all of that, and I haven't touched the bot since. But it's just crazy because the bot has literally made 30% in the last month in a week. And that is insane. That's insane, right? That's like, what the fuck? So that made me extremely excited. It made me think, dude, if this continues, I'm essentially financially free. I put all my money, by the way, in Fab, and I had like 15K US, put all of it in, and then after that, it just grew to like 20K right now. I think it's up like 33%. And I was like, if this continues, it's gonna turn from 15K to like 300K by the end of the year, assuming that this continues, which I feel like, I don't know, it's you can't tell. So what I'm trying to say is, and this segues into my next point, which is, right now I actually definitely feel very, very financially free. I naturally find myself walking slower. I naturally find myself just doing things that people want me to do. I'm spending a lot of time with family. I'm just, I'm just chilling. I'm literally just living now, and it's crazy how it feels. This is like one of the most unbelievable feelings, to just do what you want, not even need to get anything done, and at the end of the week, you don't even feel like you wasted any time. That's insane to me. that was that was what really made me feel like, this is crazy. So we'll see. We'll see whether we're going to be financially free. It's too early to tell, obviously. Might have to move to the US if this actually works. Recently, what's also happened is that, and this is where let's get to the point of moving out, is that I found a 2-person unit in the same building that was free. Since we're in a cooperative, there's a whole bunch of different types of units. There's like the studio, there's like the 1-bedroom, there's like the 2-bedroom, there's like the multi-unit. I was living in the multi-unit, the one that has like 5 roommates. And I wanted to make this video because this is the last day I'm going to be here in this room. And there's a lot of memories that were made in this room. And I grinded my freaking ass off to make fab here. And I didn't, like, what I mean by grind, it was a resistless grind. I don't know if that is a word. But I'm moving now to another 2-person unit on the 19th floor that has an unbelievable view. So it feels like I'm on the next chapter of my life, considering fab returns, considering the fact that I'm moving to a new unit, and also considering, which I didn't mention, which is that I've recently become the president of my building. And initially I was working like 4 or 5 hours about like building board of director stuff. Now it's like immediately went up to like 80 hours a week, 80 hours a month. And I think it's temporary. It's not something that's going to be, like continuing indefinitely. But there's a lot of responsibility now. And I feel the responsibility, and I've accepted the responsibility. I don't feel like there's any resistance in doing this. And it's felt really good. I feel like I really have like a very, very grandiose vision for what this place can be. There's too many people in this building that have lost hope. So even though I've made a lot of strides, nothing's been seen yet, because it hasn't manifested itself. It's all very systemic things that are being established at the moment. But I know I can do really, really good things here, and I know I can do really interesting things. And I don't know how much detail I should be going into this, just because I don't know like the context. Essentially what I did was I created a strategic plan last year, or about 9 months ago, and now that I've become president, there's almost like this authoritative push to actually talk to members, to show the strategic plan, to liaise with management and make sure that everything is literally in place now. There's like a lot of opportunity to leave legacy here. Like I'm not talking about my legacy, I'm talking about just like leave a legacy of the building. Like make sure that it paves its way to becoming like the Harvard of cooperatives, or a student housing cooperative specifically. Where you'd see like a student looking at this building being like, oh, I want to be here so bad, I want to live here so bad. Because the sense of belonging that they can see when they enter the building is so strong that it's almost palpable. And the crazy thing is that just imagine if Neil Weisig was a little more restrictive in accepting certain people. It would immediately become very scarce, and it would be very, very useful. It would be very, very useful in having people that actually live here that matter and that care, and it would create like a very, very interesting alumni network as well. There's a lot of things that I have in the works. Last thing, probably I'll mention something like fun that I've been doing. Because I've been recently I've been doing a lot of freestyling. So if there was ever a beat that was played, I would be able to do it. But I can't do it like a cappella, I can't. Or at least I wouldn't think I would sound too good if without a beat. But that's what I've been doing a lot, just as a pastime. it just feels really good to do it. It was really fun. The cool thing about freestyling is that I literally don't try to plan anything. I don't try to plan any of the next words that I'm saying that I'm going to be rhyming. And it just comes out naturally. And I'm just as surprised as whoever's listening to me freestyle when I click and the flow is being like I'm riding the flow very, very nice. And I'm rhyming it very, very tight. And I'm using all of my might. So it's fun. It's super fun. That's it. Future plans, I think that in the next few months I'll still be probably talking about a lot of like Neil Isaac stuff, because like my cooperative stuff, because I'll be probably president after this AGM that we have, and then I'll also probably be giving updates on Fab, and then I don't actually know what I'm going to be doing next. Right now it's just doing what I want. I think that's it. Peace out, everybody.